Hey everybody, back again. I thought I would take the time to talk about a lesser known designer, distributor and maker, and that's Frank Gonzales from Knives by Hand. Now Frank was generous enough to give me one of his prototypes prior to release for me to have a look at, and it'll be the first American made kukri that I've actually received and ever bought. So I'm pretty excited about it. Here it is here, KBH20. It's a double tapering, full tang, western handled kukri with a western sheath, open top as you can see here. You've got your steel D-ring, which is used to lash it to your pack, or when I have my baldric setup carried out properly, and I've actually got the clips on it, they'll clip onto the D-ring there and that'll put it by my side, which is where I tend to like a lot of my kukri, especially the larger ones. Now, let's pull this beastie out and have a look. The sheath retention is, of course, incredibly good because western leather sheath, it actually forms to the blade, which is great. Now, here it is here. Beautiful beastie, this one. Now, quite a deep spinal fuller, which is fantastic, helps lighten it right up. So we'll go through some specifications now. It's a 12-inch blade with a 2.5 inch width to the blade, a 5.5 inch handle, which is actually 1.5 inches wide. So you can see the double taper here, and this is where a lot of people get it wrong, and you'll see only the best manufacturers tend to actually remember and carry this out correctly. The double taper starts at the bolster and it goes all the way up to the tip, but it also goes all the way down to the bottom of the handle. Now, a lot of manufacturers haven't been doing that. And the reason that's a problem is it throws the balance of the kukri way off. If you're used to handling them and using them on a daily basis, you'll see and notice the difference straight away. So it's fantastic to see that done. You'll see that the full tang's actually bolted together rather than riveted. So I'm guessing that means that in a worst case scenario, if the handle scales were to break, you could probably actually undo this, take the nuts out, and using the blade, you could probably carve yourself new handle scales if you had to and bolt them back on. That's a really cool touch. I like that. Now, the edge geometry of this is something I want to talk about because on a lot of my Nepalese kukri, the edge geometry is incredibly fine. Now, if the heat treat is carried out correctly on these thinner edges, like you'll see with my Barun Triancola, it can hold up to quite a lot of punishment. But the beauty of this geometry here is, although it's not as razor sharp, it's sharp enough. And this is what I would call a utility edge. This will hold up to so much more punishment. I'll be able to baton with this, I'll be able to chop up crates, all that kind of stuff, and it's going to be really good for that. It won't lose its edge. So what that means is initially it's not going to be as razor sharp, but it also means it's going to keep that sharp edge for far longer. That's what I mean by a utility edge. It's still quite sharp though, so if I get a bit of paper, you can see I've already done a little bit of cutting on this. It'll slice the paper. So it's sharp enough to get the job done, which is good. And it'll maintain this edge and this sharpness for a lot longer. And that's the benefit of these thicker edges. And you'll see a lot of the kukri manufacturers, both in Nepal and in America, that are used to making these for heavy sort of chopping tasks. You'll see them put these sort of almost saberish grinds. Obviously, you still got it convexed, which is incredibly important for a kukri as well. The convex grind, in my opinion, is the best for this style of blade. Now, Frank's also put the finger choil in, which is almost a must, in my opinion, when it comes to smaller kukri, because it allows you to choke up the carving and have those sort of light controlled chops. And I've gone on about that quite a lot, and you'll see that in most of my designs. I do still have some traditional designs out there that'll have the Kaudi or the Cho, but I like this feature quite a lot. It's also got the lanyard hole for those of you that like using it, but this style of handle for the palm swell and that hook at the end it's not coming out of your hand unless you are absolutely exhausted. So, but just in case, it's there. And it's not hard to put those in there. It's a good feature to have just in case, so happy with that. So Frank is actually out in the field today testing one of these, he told me before I started doing my video, so it's going to be really interesting to see how it performs. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do my testing until I get home because I'm currently in America. So it'll be interesting to see how these perform, because this is going to be, being American made, it would have been Western methods used to manufacture it. So that means a Western heat treat, which would probably mean an oil heat treat. Now the reason an oil heat treat or an oil quench is better for this steel is because that's what, well, for starters, an oil quenching steel, 5160, oil quenching steel, 52100, oil quenching steel. And what that means is that oil will cause a deeper quench in the steel than what water will. And it also, an oil quench means that the steel won't be quite as brittle after the quench as what it would be in water. And it also means that they would probably temper this back. And a lot of manufacturers in Nepal, they do what they call a slack quench with a teapot. And it's highly effective, don't get me wrong, those guys have mastered that technique over the years and they do a really good job, but you don't see much tempering back after the quench, and that's what slack quenching means. There are a couple manufacturers in Nepal, if you know where to look, that'll do a thing called resting, which is the same as tempering. It's just done over a flame or coals instead of in an oven. However, that's not how this was done. This was done the Western way. So it's going to be really interesting, really cool to see how it stacks up. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone. And hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll get some testing on this done. Thank you very much again, Frank. And anyone that is interested in one of these, I'll be putting Knife by Hand's website in the description below. Check it out. Well worth it. Thank you very much.